All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Rebecca Thistlethwaite, and I'm the director of the Niche Meat Processor Assistance Network. I'm joined today by my colleague David Zarling, who is the program manager. And then we have an amazing cast of panelists who are both producers and some of them processors as well to talk about their best practices for marketing. And I purposely together a diverse panel of speakers who are kind of operating at different parts of the supply chain and market in different ways because I wanted to just show you everybody all the different options that are out there. And also to say that these folks also struggle with marketing too. None of us are perfect at this, and we're all learning from each other. And so I hope that we get some time today to learn from each other and also to learn from you and the audience. So really appreciate you showing up today and taking time for this. We are going to do this as a panel. So we have five panelists today, and I'm going to allow them to do most of their own introductions. And I'm going to be asking them a series of questions. Then we'll save some time for the end, about 20, 30 minutes for the audience to ask their own questions. In the meantime, we ask that all the audience mute and hide your video so we can just focus on the speakers today. But then when it comes time for questions, we'll let you unmute yourself and ask your questions, or you can pop things in the chat as well. If you do pop things in the chat as we go along, I'm going to save those questions until the end. So just be aware that I'm not going to be monitoring the chat and answering questions while our speakers are talking. So with that, I am going to stop sharing my opening slide. And I'm going to just quickly introduce our speakers today. So we have Gabrielle Homer of Painted Hills Natural Beef in Oregon. We have Cole Mannix of Old Salt Co-op in Montana. We have Manny Encenius of Trilogy Beef Community in New Mexico. We hopefully have Mary Heffernan of Five Mary's Ranch in California. I'm hoping she joins us today. And then we have James Serlin of Revel Meat Company in Oregon. All right, so I'm going to start off by asking the same question of each of you, and you can take a couple minutes to share. So the first question is, please briefly describe your business and what is your why? Meaning, why do you do what you do? And why don't we kick it off with Gabrielle?
You bet. So our business is Painted House Natural Beef. We've been in business just shy of 30 years. It'll be 30 years next year. The company was started, and this has driven the why ever since, because the ranchers recognized that they were producing great cattle, but when you went to the store, there was not consistency in the market, and they felt like that wasn't representative of the hard work they were putting in to raise quality cattle, and plus the prices were crap. Sorry, my politically correct word, but the prices were low and still are, we still challenge with that today. But they felt like identifying themselves in the marketplace, branding themselves, going vertical, would give them a better opportunity to both gain market and offset risk. And over the years, it's worked in a variety of ways. But for the most part, it's been very successful. And their other mission was to make sure we keep jobs in Wheeler County. So Wheeler County is the least populated county in the state of Oregon. There's fewer than one person per square mile. Would have been a whole lot easier to operate out of Portland or Seattle, or more of a centrally located location like Tri-Cities or something. But honestly, they wanted to keep jobs here, and so that's been our mission all along.
That's fantastic, Gabrielle. Thank you. Why don't we move on to James?
Sure. Um, Revel Meat Company, we're a USDA slaughterhouse and processing facility located about 30 miles outside of Portland, Oregon. We process for a wide range of ranchers throughout the Northwest. We are organic certified through Oregon Tilth. We're also AWA certified. And we also implement a robust systematic approach to humane handling. On the other side of things, Revel partners with ranchers to raise animals specifically for us, and we wholesale and retail those animals through kind of the Portland metro area. Ben Meyer and I started Revel Meat Company back in 2016, kind of realizing that we were losing access to USDA slaughter and processing in the state. Honestly, it's not just in the state of Oregon, it's everywhere in the US for small ranchers. And both Ben and I came from a restaurant background. We ran restaurants that had whole animal programs. Ben was running restaurants in Portland and realizing that it was becoming super challenging to get whole animals from the ranchers that he was working with. And before Revel, I was in the restaurant industry for 20 plus years. And then when I moved up to Oregon, I started farming in Salem. And we were raising animals and also having a really difficult time getting our animals processed because we were super small, kind of new kids on the block, reaching out to every different slaughterhouse we could think of to try to get our animals through. And we had some luck, but not a ton. And then moved to Canby in 2015 and met Chris Aiken, who was actually the previous owner of Mark's Meat, the USDA slaughterhouse that Revel would eventually buy.
That's awesome, James. You've been in business for 10 years now.
I know, it's
Congratulations.
crazy. Thank you.
I don't see a gray hair on your head yet.
Not yet.
All right, let's move on to Manny. Tell us about your business and your why.
Good morning. My name is Manny Encinias. Reaching out to you today from Central New Mexico. My family and I own Trilogy Beef Community. We started late 2019, early 2020 before COVID. I'm really fortunate that I'm the fifth generation raising the sixth generation alongside my dad, who's the fourth generation rancher in New Mexico. We're ranchers at heart. Um, I get to work side by side with my 22-year-old daughter, who's a graduate of West Texas A&M. Today, she oversees the ranch, manages our registered to show cattle. My 19-year-old daughter at West Texas A&M is also still heavily involved in the business. And my wife and my kids play a big role in the summertime as we do a lot of different marketing at different, more in-person venues. The reason we got into this business was not because we wanted to, but it became very clear at the end of 2019 that we were burning through a lot of money really fast, ranching on the commercial side, on the seed stock side, so producing bulls and females. It just wasn't cash flowing, and so we had to find us another, at least explore other marketing channels for, again, good quality genetics and a way to keep our family on the land. So that was our initial why. Today, 2026, what keeps us in this business today, almost 6 years later after starting, was just that this marketing channel for our operation works. And, we're in it for the long haul, and it really has proven to be successful. Now, it's not easy, it's not low-hanging fruit. The beef doesn't sell itself, but it's rewarding on so many levels beyond just providing cash flow week in and week out onto the ranch. I think we're very unique in an operation that we're 45 minutes away from 500,000 people, and we're 60 minutes away from another 100,000 people. So I think we're uniquely situated, and we don't own a processing facility, but we're 15 minutes away gate to gate from a USDA packer. So there's a lot of things that in our business that makes us, I think, rightly situated to be successful but we still got to get out and hustle. I'll kind of leave it at that for this moment.
Thank you, Manny, for sharing all that. And what a privilege it is to be able to ranch with your family like that. Why don't we move on to Cole?
Hi, everyone. I live in Helena, Montana, and grew up on my family's ranch in western Montana in a little town called Helmville. It's about an hour away. My aunts and uncles and my siblings and my cousins all run the ranch, and I live in town. And Old Salt Co-op is a meat company there are 5 member ranches that are a part of it, including my family's. And the parent company is governed by majority ranches and minority workers. And our mission is to send value upstream in the supply chain rather than concentrating it downstream. Um, what we really want to do is empower the people doing the work of stewardship. And we think that, generally what happens kind of downstream of the ranch is that money and opportunity tend to be consolidated downstream. So we have a meat company that sells wholesale now. And we also custom process for others. We have a meat processing plant in Butte, Montana, an hour from Helena, that we have only recently owned. That's September is when we acquired that plant. We process about in the low 40s per week of beef equivalents. It's a mix of beef and hogs. Our meat company itself, we also do a little bit of lamb. So it's beef, hogs, and lamb. We have 5 different product lines. We own and operate a couple of restaurants as part of trying to meet our community. Both restaurants are in Helena today, with possibly one on the way this summer. And we hold an annual festival. Um, uh, we've done that for 3 years, and we're coming on our 4th. That's on my family's ranch, and it tries to engage um, mostly urban people, but also rural people, and just who care about land and care about connecting with each other and care about connecting with their food. Last year we had about 3,000 people over 3 days. And then we do an online e-commerce business as well. We're probably the most startup-y of all of the folks on this call, so we have a lot to learn. The initial conversations were 2020, and we formed the business in 2021. And we started life as a cooperative. No longer are a cooperative; we're an LLC parent company. But the operating agreement is basically built like a cooperative. We sort of took cooperative DNA and put it into a more flexible LLC structure to try to do what we're doing. So I'll stop there.
Thank you, Cole. Unfortunately, I don't think our 5th speaker is here, but it's okay. We'll just move on. We put on this 2-part marketing series because the meat space is getting pretty crowded these days. And it's also pretty expensive to market these days to capture people's attention when it is so crowded. And, there's investor-owned businesses that are spending millions on acquiring new customers. And most of us don't have those kind of budgets. So we're working with scrappy teams here. And so we thought this is important stuff to find out what are people doing these days, and how are people innovating and pivoting in the marketing space. So my next question is describing your various sales channels and why you choose that mix. So I'm just going to go through the same order that I started with. So Gabrielle.
All right. So when the company started, and this is going to sound familiar, we were processing 10 head a week, right? So this is 1997. The first process, I think, was in October, November. And so lining up 60 head of cattle was a big deal. Today we're processing about 300 a week. That is down from our high. The post-COVID high in 22 was almost 650 head a week. That, as you all know, would take a lot of money today, and assuming a lot of risk. So we are mostly wholesale, and that was developed way back in the day, working directly with stores, smaller grocery chains, single owner. Back in the day, you don't have very much of that any longer, but working with those smaller stores, and then the related distribution channels, so the warehouses, the United Grocers or Unified Grocers or Western Box Meats, or those distribution channels. And we grew fairly quickly. In 99, we had an opportunity to go into a store. They asked that we be never ever, and prior to that we weren't, for antibiotics and hormones. And at that time, we made that leap and went to processing with Washington beef. And we were doing 10 head a week. they said, we'll do a minimum of 60 head. So we went to 60 head every 3 weeks, and that kind of threw a lot of energy behind making connections in the wholesale market, because we had, in our terms then, a lot of meat to move. And so that really was our focus. At the same time, concurrently, there were some restaurant distribution companies, particularly in Portland, but also in Seattle, that picked up our product. Chefs buy with their mouth. And so chefs like to have a great eating experience, and they tried our beef. And as it happened, then they started putting it on menus. And that really drove the retail side, because people would have a great experience of a steak on the menu in a restaurant and then go seek it out in the stores. And so it was a consumer pull through process. We have done very, very little direct to retail, but again, COVID changed that too, and also people would be from Seattle and move to Arizona and not find the beef quality that they were looking for, and they wanted to get our beef. And so around 2019, 2020, we started direct to retail online. We do it completely organically. We spend no money other than just our general marketing activities, which are super, super small. We don't even have a marketing budget. We don't call it a budget because it doesn't exist. We just go out and sell meat, standing in a store, talking to consumers, those kinds of things built that side of the business. So retail, grocery store is about 85%. Food service is about 15%, and that can fluctuate throughout the year to 80-20. And direct to retail is like 0.5%.
Well, one thing I love about Painted Hills is you see Gabrielle and her husband Will standing at grocery stores, sampling their beef all the time, all over the region. And that's pretty amazing to have that direct connection to the ranchers, for the consumers to see that. So I'm always very impressed, and also know that you must drive a ton.
We do, but it is by far the most powerful. We have to tell the story. That's who we are as an industry. Every one of the folks that we've already heard from today, that's who we are. We are storytellers. We all have that why, right?
Thank you. All right, so why don't we ask James next?
Sure.
Your sales channels and why that mix.
So right now our sales channels are our retail butcher shop, and we wholesale to restaurants and institutions. Our retail butcher shop is inside of a kind of fancy grocery store called Providore Fine Foods in Portland. Um, and selling wholesale and retail is really an optimal mix for us. We don't really do any direct to consumer online sales or anything like that. We never really got into it during COVID. But for us, we really need to gain the full retail value on cuts like ribeyes and New Yorks and tenderloins and things like that. But then on the other side of things, because we're buying hanging weight cattle from ranchers, not just cuts, we need to have a home for trim and ground and bones and all the things that don't sell as well, at the butcher shop. Um, so running both of those programs kind of hand in hand has worked out pretty well for us. It's definitely challenging on the wholesale side of things, because we come up against, plenty of restaurants that would love to put a ribeye on the menu. We're like, nope, sorry, those all get sold at the butcher shop. But if you'd like some ground beef, we've got plenty of that. Um, but luckily, Nathaniel Price, our sales manager, is really great at what he does and works his ass off to make it work for people. And when we do have a surplus, we do a lot of dry aging as well. And if we're getting past that 50-day mark and the butcher shop doesn't need it, we'll portion cut those, vacuum seal them, and freeze them. And then some restaurants buy those from us to run on their menu as kind of a special or something like that. Um, as far as like distributors and things like that, we have always kind of steered clear. I don't think we're not really big enough. We don't have enough animals to do something like that. And B, our margins don't really allow for chipping off a piece for someone else as well. Um, and being so small and we're only now starting to kind of get some brand recognition and stuff like that. Um, I don't really love the idea of someone else representing our brand that's not one of our employees. So yeah, we stick to retail and wholesale. Um, and kind of like Gabrielle was saying, I think being in restaurants really does help kind of market our animals. And then they go to Providor and they're like, oh my God, I saw this on so and so's menu or whatever it may be. But yeah, those are our two main sales channels. Um, Slaughterhouse itself and processing facility is kind of ran as a separate business, and we don't market that really at all. Like most folks that run a small slaughterhouse, it's busy enough. Um, there's a real need for more of us out there in the world. So we don't really market that side at all.
Nice. Well, I was impressed that your slaughterhouse at least has a website. That's better than most.
Thank you.
I'm just curious about the wholesaling to restaurants. Do you dry age? Do you custom dry age for restaurants too?
We don't. We do a 30-day dry. So all of our beef hangs for 10 to 14 days as a half carcass before we break it. Um, and then for some of the other ranchers that we process for, we'll do some custom dry aging for them. But for our middles, like New York's tenderloins, ribeyes, top sirloins, um, we dry age those for 30 and 50 days. Um, and that gets sold mostly through the butcher shop, especially around the holidays and stuff like that. Sometimes we'll do some 70-day dry age stuff and things like that. Um, and then if we have extra, it's available for restaurants, but we're not actually doing any custom dry aging for people. It's really just a like, well, we've got some extra, who wants it? And it's usually Greg Higgins that scoops them all up.
Yeah, that's a great restaurant. All right, let's move on to Manny. Can you talk about your sales channels and why you chose that mix?
You bet. Well, back to our the beginning of our story, we got into this because we had to explore it, and really we wanted to start at the restaurant level, and really just one way, because we're so drought prone in the Southwest, was, and we didn't have any cattle up on feed yet as far as a maturity type of cattle. We thought this is a great way to get into the restaurants by just selling ground beef. Um, and again, this was our pre-COVID plan. And this is something we started at the beginning of January 2020. And wow, here comes March 2020, and we had to pivot like crazy. And lo and behold, we are where we're supposed to be, knowing that we're really comfortable feeding families today, right? That's really where we spend a lot of our time. We are at a year-round farmers market in Santa Fe, one of the top 10 in the country. 5 to 6 thousand people a week come through there. We also attend two other seasonal farmers markets, 30 to 50 miles from the ranch, again in Albuquerque, North Albuquerque, in a place called Corrales. And then we also market to families through our online store, which again we lifted up during COVID. It's one of our weaker marketing outlets, but at least it's still a home. And people still order on through there, where we still do home deliveries, scheduled drops, ranch pickups. But some of the other aspects that have really grown out for us have been our selling to institutions. We have a program in New Mexico called New Mexico Grown, which is funded by the state legislature for meat producers and produce producers to get their products into public institutions. So that's schools, starting from early childhood development through K through 12, all the way through through the senior meal services programs. So that has become a really big market for us, kind of in the off farmers market season. So again, starting at the beginning of the fiscal year, which starts July 1 all the way through June 30th, but mostly in the fall and winter, we're selling to institutions, and institutions also expand out into food banks. We were actively involved with the Regional Farm to Food Bank program. And again, the great thing about these institutional markets is that we're not selling wholesale. We're actually selling at fair market price. And so we're not having to give up any margin. Not that we're a big margin business, but we don't have to sit there and just really take it for break even. So that's the great thing about our institutional markets here in New Mexico that continue to gain momentum year after year in the state legislature. And then we have an opportunity to sell on the retail market space, some smaller, more the smaller grocers in the region. We place products with them on a regular basis, and then we're kind of backed ourselves back into the restaurant market, right? Because we spend so much time at these bigger farmers markets in these spaces, and the people like to eat, want to say, hey, where can we go eat a steak? One of these steaks prepared by somebody else. And so we found ourselves in a really unique situation with some of the upper end farm to table experiences in New Mexico, Los Poblanos, and Albuquerque Farm to Table in Albuquerque, Fable in El Dorado. That really, it's nice. It's fun because they share the same philosophy as us. And we really feel comfortable in that space because they're investing in a local product, and we know what a major investment that is in such a tight margin business like a restaurant. So we're grateful for those relationships that we have with our restaurants. We're it's so amazing to be able to work with chefs on a daily basis, right? Who are just, hey, we're a little bit long on this product. Can you take it? And they're so creative, and they'll take it and they'll just do some amazing stuff with our product. We're about a couple weeks away from opening up our retail spot here on the ranch. Again, that's just another part for us, another way for us to really listen to our customers who want to be at the ranch. They want to experience it when they take it home. They want to go to a restaurant, but they also want to come to the ranch, and we're open to that transparency with what we do, and it fits within our bandwidth of what we're capable to do as a family because I have so many kids. And they're all into the consumer education business, so it's super awesome.
Nice. Put those kids to work. And little kids can sell meat because they're so dang cute. So I speak from experience there. Manny, are you still selling to the tribes as well?
I've kind of left that space open to our tribal producers. I think really, again, my role where I'm at is really just to kind of mentor where I possibly can, just to kind of, try to help them create more successful models and learn from my mistakes and try to help build them a network. They have enough capacity. We're just we continue to try to lobby for them to get more kill capacity to build skill sets within their communities. To me, that's, feed their own people, right? Enable their own people. And that's kind of been my role as probably since like about 2023.
Awesome. I like that, Manny. All right. Cole, your turn.
Yeah, so to start with, we have 5 product lines. Um, we inherited 2 brands when we purchased this packing facility and inherited that team. And so there's a Montana Natural Pork brand and there's a Montana Ranch Beef brand. So all the livestock comes from Montana, but that doesn't come from our members and they don't bear the Old Salt name. And then we have 3 Old Salt lines of product. We have a grain finished beef line, a grass finished beef line, and a heritage hog line. And so those are the various different things that we're selling. And on the wholesale side, we we sell to our own restaurants. We've just begun in the last few months selling to mostly food service accounts, a little bit institutional. There's a couple of park concessionaires for Glacier and Yellowstone, some Montana State University, University of Montana, those type of accounts. But then also just restaurants in places like Big Sky and the Flathead and Bozeman, Montana. Um, we work with about 4 small distributors. Our only rule is that we won't work with US Foods or Cisco. We also have a couple of our own trucks that we use because like we can't get to the universities with the distributor margin on top. And so we find that it is worthwhile to run a couple of our own trucks. And then on the direct to consumer side, we sell our meat is priced online to get for free shipping to 2-day ground as far as that. And if it's air, then there's an additional shipping cost to customers. But we also deliver on a route system direct to consumer in Montana drop route system. And so if our customers on that route system pick a pickup location and they get 22% off, which is the cost of our packaging and dry ice and stuff. So one Saturday we go to Northwest Montana, and another Saturday we go to Southwest Montana to meet people in parking lots and deliver direct to consumer meats. We have just begun doing a little bit of value added production, co-packing at Sturgis Meats in South Dakota, because we really don't have ready to eat capacity at our current facility. We can smoke hams and bacons, but the facility really isn't set up for full ready to eat. And then we're in the process of, we also have a small processing plant in Helena that we started with, and that's where we pack our e-commerce orders and deliver to our own restaurants here in Helena. And it's also, we're renovating a little building there to make an air-dried Brazala product that will also be a wholesale product, mostly aging around in flats for about 60 days. And so those products should come online for us in May. But anyway, it's quite a mix. And our mission as a company is to try to build a set of middle market infrastructure that works for the producer rather than the other way around. And so we're really not trying to brand around a specific set of genetics. I'm trying to build a meat company that can move what happens to work best for the ranches on the ground. And so, for example, one of our producers has a 9 composite, 9 different breeds in a composite that has worked really well for them. Another ranch is purely yearlings. They don't have a mother cow herd. They're grazing in the high country amongst a dense grizzly bear population, and they need to use yearlings to make that happen. And so their genetics are changing all the time. And so I think this is a little bit off the topic of sales channels, but I think that all of the hair splitting over product attributes can miss the point. What we're trying to do is to market a structurally different system that when meat moves through that system and customers support that system, it supports the people doing the work. And so I guess the way that reflects back to our sales channels is just that because I don't buy boxed beef and reprocess it, I'm always using live animals from Montana. I need every sales channel that I can find. And I think to move the whole animal and to get better at the byproduct side, we're going to continue to need to, right now we're developing a small retail ready line of packaged product that is, UPC barcoded that can show up in independent grocers that surround the parks. So these are really small grocery stores who don't have a scale and they just need to be able to scan, a cut. So that it's a diverse mix of product lines and also just a diverse mix of sales channels.
Yeah, that sounds complicated, but I appreciate that you're taking a different approach by helping to market people's animals, kind of regardless of their genetics, and that it's understandable you need that many sales channels for that. And I also appreciate that you said you're working with a co-packer for your RTE products because you don't have that capability. That's refreshing to hear. A lot of people try to do it themselves, not having an appropriate RTE space or the food safety system to support that and do it well. So good on you for finding a good co-packer. Is that relationship going well?
Yeah, it's really at the early stages.
Yeah.
But there's a woman named Cindy Toll who has Sturgis and Sacred Storm Buffalo, and that team of indigenous kids are mostly managing that plant, and so it's just fun to they're trying to do a lot of similar things in their neck of the woods, and it's a good thing for them to be as full as they can be. So yeah, we need to figure out ways to work together for sure.
That's awesome. Thank you, Cole. Okay, so the next question is how do you market to those different sales channels and audiences? So why don't we start with Gabrielle?
All right. So, like I think a couple of other people said, we don't allow the distributors to market for us at least at the retail level, at the grocery store level. We call the stores, we visit the stores. We have an inside sales manager, and then another, our vice president of sales is based out of Seattle and handles that. And then Will does some of it, Misha does some of it. We're a team that kind of overlaps a little bit, but that's what happens in a family run business, right? So we call the stores. We don't as a general rule, sell through distribution into the retail stores. We do for restaurants. Restaurants are, they want portion cut, they're slow to pay, they are challenging, they make a little bit of beef go a long way. And for us at scale, that didn't always make sense for us to spend that much time. We are shrinking back to that kind of presence, where I'm working with a restaurant in downtown Portland right now to do kind of a rancher hosted dinner, in their venue, again, because, people want to feel connected, and that level of connection that we can offer by sitting in the room with them, letting them ask their questions in person, I think is huge. And so that's how we do that. Without a doubt, like you brought up, Rebecca, standing in stores is the biggest thing, and we'll kind of hit on that more with question number 4. But just communicating. We are also not breed specific. We don't tell ranchers what breed works best on their land, in their program, in their system. We just ask that they follow our protocols and don't use the growth promotants. And again, that was a consumer driven request. That was because the customers asked, not because, we felt like we wanted to dictate how people raise their cattle. So I applaud everyone. You guys are knocking it out of the park. I'm so impressed listening to the variety of ways you guys have encountered situations and problems and are working through the market. It's exciting. One last point I was just going to make, I made a note. When you do work through a distributor, you also do assume some risk, though. And we, post-COVID, we took 2 major losses, bankruptcy losses of 2 distributors, one of which we never would have thought would go out of business. And that really impacted our bottom line in 2 years in a row. And so that has been something that's been a cautionary tale for us, where we have, had some of those, one of those relationships was about 22 years old, and they filed bankruptcy, and we had no warning, and took over a $200,000 loss there. So cautionary tale, sometimes people aren't as forthcoming as we would like them to be.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I know that direct to consumer is a kind of tiny portion of your sales mix, and you really started that during COVID. But how do you, market to that channel currently?
Yeah, so that's probably it kind of started, like I said, because people requested it. So one of our customers does the pick and pack. They do the portion cutting pick and pack out of Seattle. So Corfini Gourmet does that for us out of Seattle. We can't ship overnight or even reliably 2-day out of Fossil, and we don't have the capacity to portion cut here. So they do that for us. And we started with a different customer, but kind of has a synergy in that they're already working with our beef. And so we're just helping them move some of it. And so they have the capacity to do so. The way that we market that is social media, and then our newsletter. And the newsletter is huge. And I can tell you that because the newsletter goes out once a month, and we instantly get orders. And so that has been like, when you're looking for that direct result, that's been one of the most powerful ones. And so, but it follows because it's direct contact with the consumer. It's, I'm not standing in a store, but I am sending them, what's happening on the ranch, what I'm cooking on the table. It's very personal when I send out the newsletter, and I think it really generates a lot of attention and inspiration. People are still a little intimidated to cook. And so showing people how to cook, giving them the power to feel like they can do it.
Well, I get their newsletter just because I like to spy on people, and it's a good one. It's inspiring, and it's very approachable, and I love the recipes. So thank you, Gabrielle.
Thank you.
James, how about you?
Marketing is not exactly our strong suit. I am looking to give it a shot and change it this year. Um, for the butcher shop, we pretty much use social media. Um, we have not done the greatest job in the world. It's kind of gone up and down over the years when we've had people on our team that are interested in taking that on. It gets a little better. When that person maybe doesn't work for us anymore, it gets worse. I'm now in control of it again, and I can tell you I'm not great at it. But we also use Providor's newsletter when we're doing special events in the store. We've got a little kind of pop-up sort of situation coming up at the end of this month. My wife owns a restaurant in Yamhill County, and we're going to sell some sausage rolls and some grilled cheese sandwiches and some soups and some things like that outside of the store. So things like that we stick in the Providor newsletter. And then we also will continue to use Instagram and other social media to get the word out on that. And for wholesale, we use social media a bit. This is something that we'd like to kind of expand upon. We really, a few years ago, we came up with an idea of doing kind of really personal social media marketing for kind of going restaurant by restaurant that are good customers of ours, and really kind of telling their story and how they use our meat and those sorts of things. That's something we'd like to kind of pick back up this year. And then our sales manager, Nathaniel, pretty much writes a short form newsletter every week that goes out to all of our wholesale customers. It's really short. It's, anywhere from 4 to 8 paragraphs, just kind of about what's going on in the plant, what's going on in the meat market nationally, what kind of specials we might be running or sales we're having, what we're long on. Um, like Manny was saying, restaurants are really good at using some random cuts that we're long on, especially if they're going to get a good deal on them to kind of blow through them. And he's done a really great job at that. And that's something that he wants to expand upon and make that more of a, bigger thing and start doing a monthly newsletter. I do think that that is a really good way to reach our customers kind of across the board. Um, but yeah, I think, we've never really done any real PR or marketing or anything like that. Um, and 2026 is the year to start telling our story some more and tell the story of the ranchers that we work with, and kind of continue down that path of putting the ranchers first. It's what we've always tried to do at Revel. We finally this year have gotten to a point with our new scale system that on the Revel USDA label, it actually says what ranch that cuts from, which is super fun. Um, it's something we've been working on for a long time and finally got it there. So yeah, just continuing kind of in any direction we possibly can, to do a little bit more marketing all the time.
Thanks, James.
Yeah.
I appreciate the business to business marketing that you guys are doing. That's critical to you have to actually market to your wholesalers.
Hmm.
They need to be informed on what you're doing so they can then market that out to their customers. So I think that is really smart. And then I just love the idea of businesses promoting each other. That partner promotion is
Hmm.
critical, especially if you're selling to restaurants or retailers, is to help promote them as well to your audiences. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Manny, how about you?
Well, yeah, I think the most successful way that we've marketed to these I guess our different sales channels is just being present and in person. I think that has built our business more than anything. Again, I've imprinted my children to understand the fronts and backs of the ranch, the ins and the outs of the meat business, to understand the cuts, so they can also tell the story very well. And I feel like, being in person, it's hard to beat that. It's hard to beat that authenticity when you're buying the meat from the one that's producing it, the one that ranches the land, the one that can talk it back and forth. and understand, what cuts fit where. I think that's the greatest part I think about even with my kids is they know what cuts they like. They know how we prepare and why we even cut the steaks the way that we cut them for retail, right? We cut them a consistent thickness so that we can go to a farmer's market and say, this is going to be, get it to room temperature, 7 minutes on one side, 7 minutes on the other side, a 10-minute rest. And then the customer comes back the following week and says, wow, that was the most amazing ribeye I've ever eaten. And a lot of it had to do with preparation, right? They might have had good pieces of meat in their hand before, but they've never been instructed. And I feel like that in-person connection has built so much. It's built us up to a point where we have over 6,000 people that receive our weekly email and through our online store, and that's just face to face, handing out the cards and people having the confidence. And so we know that we don't get any sales from social media, right? We may get some message requests and, hey, do you sell wholes, halves, quarters? We heard about you. But I think our momentum has really come from just being in person. And that's from farmers markets where we meet chefs or we walk into a restaurant or we're at a restaurant and they're saying, how was it? I'm like, you really want to know? Sit down, right? And so we sit down with the restaurant owners and say, great presentation, or hey, this was awful, or hey, you know what, choice is not choice, right? And so we start talking, and and another thing again is what we do a lot of is just we invite people to the ranch. We've hosted several chefs, different types of people to the ranch. We had this time of year when the restaurants are really slow, they have some free time to get executive chefs, to get ownership. And then we just kind of take them front to back, kind of give them a half day at the ranch and let them experience kind of what that's all about. Because again, that's where they build confidence, and that's how it's starting to fit more into their marketing plans of selling the experience to people that are eating at their restaurants. Um, you know, Again, the other thing that we do a lot of is on a weekly basis, we stay in contact with our institutions, with the food banks, with the restaurants. You have to constantly, you have to keep reminding them, or somebody else will remind them that they need a product, right? So we try to stay very present with those customers. So everything happens on certain days of the week in our system. So Mia will get a hold of her chefs on one day, say, hey, what do you need for the week? Wholesale accounts. Once we do update inventory on Monday mornings, then we go out to the institutions and say, hey, this is what we've got. What are you looking for? Hey, this is what we're going to be processing this week on the fresh side. What do you need? And then the other part that I think a lot of people don't have time for, but I think it's very effective. It's cold calling. I mean, making those hard calls, making those introductions to people that maybe, it's hard. I mean, it's something. I'm 52 years old, and I'm just barely, getting comfortable with the whole idea. But once you just knock on the door and they're receptive, they're like, oh yeah, hey, I do have some New Mexico grown funds that I haven't spent yet. Why don't I give you a shot? Hey, can we come see you? Hey, can you send me a price list? And we send a follow-up email with more introductory of who we are. So I think we market face to face. We market in person. Social media has not been much for us. Again, our online store is basically just a placeholder for people to order and to better, and again, just to kind of streamline some of those processes. But our momentum has come from just being in front of people.
That's great, Manny. And it also helps to have 7 children to do all that FaceTime, right?
Well, it is, and I think, just like others have mentioned, they can sell the brand. They can sell our identity, and people listen. Some people want to buy from my 9-year-old son. I want to say 7, but he's 9. They want to just buy from him, and some want to just buy from a certain, daughter, and there's a connection. But I feel like they can tell the story. Last night at supper, we were talking about this because we oftentimes have people want to come work for us, and we're like, are you really committed? Because if you're going to be committed, you're going to have to live here on the ranch, right? We want you to live here and want you to be part of the entire experience so you can truly understand what we do. And I really think that's what it takes to truly have an authentic experience and to differentiate your product from other people's product is to truly be able to tell the story and answer the hard question that might be presented to you when you have to face somebody face to face.
Well, I really appreciate how much you have brought your children into the fold and educated them on every aspect of the business so they can really represent it, but also they're excited about it, like they can see a future in your business, which a lot of children can't see. So I think you're really building a great future for Trilogy. All right, let's move on to Cole.
I think one of the things I need to do is have more kids, first of all, Annie, and have the kids I have need to get older quick. Um, one of the things I would say is that we initially thought that having restaurants would help us build a direct-to-consumer business. Uh, I don't think we've really seen that. The first restaurant we launched was a miracle that it actually worked pretty well. It's a little smash burger joint that we could lease a space, and it moves between 500 and 900 pounds of ground beef a week, which is a big deal for us as an outlet. And but as many people that have gone through that joint and had got to know Old Salt, it's hard to make the connection of, oh, you can also buy your meat online from us. Um, so I'm not sure that we've proven the concept that helps the direct to consumer sales. I would say that what the restaurants have done for us is brand recognition. They brought in investment, they brought in PR, and those things are two largest ways of growing the direct to consumer side have been organic. People finding us, we had a couple of things come out on CBS and one in the New York Times, and people do find you that way. Then the challenge is to retain them. And um, the other kind of major, most important for us direct to consumer sales is email. And we've spent so much time in these first few years just setting up little businesses and building infrastructure that we're just beginning to barely market meet and have a consistent set of emails that go out. Social media is much more just awareness. We have from the beginning, like we didn't want to spend 15% of gross sales on ads. And we have never run ads to any appreciable degree. We have started to experiment in the Google and Meta spaces to see if there's markets where we can get the return on ad spend to be high enough where it makes sense. For example, having these routes that we deliver on helps us to concentrate ads and experiment and just be specific about where you're spending money. But still, like it might be $500 here and there. It's not thousands of dollars on ads. Um, the festival is a little bit different. I mean, I think it has helped us sell some meat, and it's also just um, similar to the restaurants. It's helped us to generate PR. We found the investor who closed our most recent round that way, and it's just making us smarter quicker because our network expands. Other people who are doing similar things around the country. And so I would say our festival is probably our single biggest marketing spend, and it's not insignificant. The first, it costs us about $400,000 in direct money, not including corporate, you know, organizing spend, just to put on that event. And first year we lost a bunch of money. Last year we broke even with our direct costs for the first time. Um, we paid maybe $30,000 worth of overhead. I estimate it takes us about 140,000 of overhead to put the festival on. So we might actually cover that overhead this year. So it's a slow burn, but it's a real community building thing, and it's an in-person way. It's hard with a lot of ranch tours to really gain uh, people quickly enough. They're just, ranch tours by nature, they're useful, but they're small. It's hard to scale that. On the wholesale side, our marketing is it's a lot of cold calling. Um, and having a plant does help people call us a little bit more. Um, but that's only been the last several months we've had that. So it's a slow burn. Because we work with small distributors who we know, we're trying our best to give them the materials that they need and to spend a lot of time with them so they understand how to represent the product. And so it's a mix. I don't think we're particularly, like James said, I mean, I don't think we're particularly good marketers yet. I think we're telling a good story, but we're not sophisticated. For the first time, we hired a woman who's very good on the data and analytics side, who is running the digital side for us and has cleaned up our room quite a bit and made it less messy and done the right segmentation in our email. And And so I'm really grateful for that expertise. It's one thing to plug a bunch of apps into Shopify, and it's another thing to do it native so that you can really track what's being most impactful and what's not. And that for that it requires a deeper level of DevOps is a word I've learned to say, even though I barely understand what it means. But coding and basically figuring out how to tweak the site itself rather than doing a bunch of plugins. Um, let's see what else to say about. I think that's probably I think that's probably good for the moment. The more in person that we can possibly do, the better. This year, our goal has been to hold one monthly event somewhere in our Western Montana, Central Montana ecosystem where it happens on a Saturday afternoon, and it's a several hour opportunity to gather our employees, our investors, our direct to consumer folks, and highlight some part of the ecosystem. So that might be on a ranch, or it might be on at one of the wholesale restaurants we sell to, or one of our own restaurants. But it's just a gathering opportunity, and it keeps people connected. And now that we have over 100 employees, and one of the biggest challenges is just them getting to know each other. It's very different to be a processor in the plant versus one of our restaurant employees versus one of the folks like me that works in the office all the time. And just having them have regular opportunities to meet each other, spend time, and start to kind of own the story themselves is big.
Yeah, I like that last part, Cole, because the more the more connected they feel, the more invested in your business and its success. So that just trickles up for everyone. I think I'm going to skip question 4, but you can roll it into your next answer, so that we have enough time for audience questions. But um, last question is, where do you see the future of direct to consumer sales and marketing for your business? So let's start off with Gabrielle.
Cool. Yeah, everything that they've said. I mean, if anybody's watching and they're looking to expand their business or get into the business, it's all right there. It's all been presented to you. I would say I'm going to roll back to the number 4, if that's okay, because in our situation, we've always had an in-house marketing person. We do use a contract company to help us with the backside of the website and some content. I took a digital marketing class through Texas Tech University. That was huge. It's not because I am actively doing it every day, but I needed to be able to understand the language and the tools that are available to us and how they can be used. That in person, that connection, anything that you can do that connects with your consumer or your customer, whether that's on the wholesale side. So when we stand in a demo, like you talked about, Rebecca, we're standing in the demo, we're talking to the retail consumer, but we're also educating the meat manager and the meat department staff at the same time about the attributes of our program, about how to cook beef. A lot of times, some of those guys are like great barbecue guys, and you can really get a fun conversation going. So without a doubt, in-person demos are what built Painted Hills Natural Beef, bar none. Since then, the advent of using newsletters, which came with the digital marketing class, and doing events, because we found we could leverage one person's time in a larger venue. We do host events here about once every other year, but those are specific to our vendors because we do have such a wide chain, logistics chain. And so that's everything from producers, guys on the ground, cow-calf guys, all the way up to chefs. Everyone in between, truckers, trucking companies, distributors, but the feedlot managers, all of it. And it's really fun to get those people together to share ideas and their part of the business, how they fit into the matrix of how a piece of ribeye gets from Homer Ranch in Fossil, Oregon to a restaurant in Chicago, and it is a lot. It's a lot. It takes a lot. This is a very complex business. In terms of direct to consumer, there is no doubt it has been growing. We've been doubling every year. I think that because we're so large on the wholesale side, it's hard sometimes for us to keep an idea of just what that scale means. But people want to be connected. They want to buy direct from us, and it's a personal transaction. A lot. We have so many repeat customers. They do come back, and then we've also increased the mix of what we offer. And so I go into the sales department and I say, which is when my son's mother-in-law, so I use that term loosely, but I walk in, I say, hey Melissa, what are you long on, what do you need to move, what can I help you promote? And so she says, hey, I've got some prime butt tenders here that have got 3 weeks on them. I'm like, great, I'll put them on the website. And that stirs activity. And it also causes people to, think about other cuts. But that's been ball tips. That's been hanging tenders. That's been, it's whatever. You would think of it as people buying steaks, but really we're moving a lot of different cuts across that portal.
Thank you, Gabrielle. Well, I had the privilege to attend one of your parties several years ago. I call it a party. One of their big gatherings of all their buyers and their producers and the slaughterhouse.
I am Anna.
Oh, Olivia, can you mute yourself? Anyway, it was a blast, and I think it's a great opportunity to do that B2B marketing that I was talking about. So let's move on to James. You can answer either the fourth or fifth question.
Sure. I was hoping to skip the fourth question anyway. Our marketing activity spends are pretty low, even though they're going to increase this year, and we're just going to have to bite the bullet on that one. Um, as far as the future of our direct-to-consumer sales, I mean, we'll continue to sell retail at our butcher shop in Portland. We have had some conversations around opening another butcher shop. We really need to grow wholesale and retail at the same time. Like I was saying earlier, um, in order to gain the retail margin off of the middle meats, we need to sell all the rest of it, and we typically do that through wholesale. And up until about 2 years ago, we only sourced beef for Revel from one rancher, Pat and Tam's out of Stanfield, Oregon, and we only sourced hogs from Reben Farms in Banks. Um, and that was it. And it was an easy way for us to tell that story, and our customers knew what they were getting when they were walking up to the case or if they were buying wholesale at their restaurant. But in 2024, we implemented a new ERP system in the slaughterhouse, and that was paid for through some grant funding for a traceability program. And it now has allowed us to run different lines of animals while keeping 100% traceability on the products and 100% transparency for our customers. Like I was saying before, it actually has the ranch name on the label itself. So every pork chop, every cut, every sausage that gets made out of Reben's pigs says Reben Farms on the label. We've started working with Chehalis Valley Farm up in Washington to buy some hogs off of him. Um, and we've started working with Little 7-7 Ranch on the beef side of things. So it's been a very fun and interesting and kind of ideal way for us to grow. We know that as we continue to grow, we don't want to push our ranchers to grow more than they feel comfortable with or grow more than they can handle on their piece of ground. We never want, we don't want them to overextend themselves or lease more ground or do any of those things. We don't want to be responsible for them biting off more than they can chew. Um, and so bringing on more ranchers is really going to be the way for us to grow our brand. Um, Part of that, we were talking about it a little bit earlier. Actually, maybe that was before the call, but we kind of need to find a way to market the opposite direction and market Revel to ranchers. Um, Something that that we need to do is find more ranchers that want to sell through Revel. Um, and what we don't want to do is, I think a lot of bigger meat companies, Painted Hills, you guys have done a great job of not falling into this trap, but so many bigger meat companies have fallen into the trap of chasing demand and letting quality slip and kind of smoothing out what they say about their ranchers and where the animals are coming from and things like that. And that is just not something that Rebel is looking to do. We will grow slowly and we will continue to piece it together until we get to the point that we can actually do that in the right way. I think you just see it too often where this meat brand starts out with really great intentions and a really great set of guidelines on what their raising practices are and who they're buying animals from, and all of a sudden it's animals from 37 states in the country. So that's not what we want to do. But yeah, we just want to, continue to bring more ranchers kind of under the brand that want to sell through us. And we really feel that, ranchers are really great at ranching, and most of them don't want to stand at a farmer's market and don't want to sell to restaurants and chase them around for money and all those sorts of things. And I think that's an important piece that we bring to the table, especially myself, Ben, and Nathaniel, and the whole team kind of coming out of the restaurant industry, is that we can deal with those chefs when they're being a pain. Um, but yeah, that's kind of our job in this supply chain is to help those ranchers get their animals to market without them actually having to do a ton of the legwork.
Thank you, James.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if there are any ranchers, producers in the area on this call, pop your info into the chat for James if
Let
you
me know.
sell some animals. Um, and we're gonna move through the last two speakers kind of quickly so we can have some Q&A time. But Manny, you want to talk about the future of your direct-to-consumer market?
You bet. I'll be try to be really quick. I think there's just an upside. Again, I mentioned at the very beginning, we're very rightly placed geographically to a lot of people. So I think it'll be strategic in the way we move forward with direct to consumer sales. I mean, honestly, I'm really hoping that we can ramp up this experience learning at our place to just excite other ranchers, to excite other food consumers about all the good that's happening on places like ours, right? We're right off of a major interstate. We bring in RVs off of the interstate on a weekly basis, on a regular basis throughout the week. There's an upside, but there's so many good operations in close proximity to us that just don't have the bandwidth, and we want to make sure that we can just continue just to tell the story, not only that what we're doing, but what others are doing. But the upside is great, and we're just glad that we got in when we did.
Yeah, and you're adding a retail store, so that's something new for you, right? On your
Yeah,
ranch.
definitely. Yeah. So we're just excited. Hopefully it'll keep us home a little more. It's kind of what we're hoping long term. It'll just keep us home and we can stay on the ranch doing what we like. And again, my kids, you mentioned it earlier, Rebecca. I mean, this opportunity didn't exist in 2020 for my kids to come back to the ranch. Now it exists. They're excited. And my freshman at WT is going into ag and media communications when in 2017, if you would have asked her, said, I want to be a medical doctor. I want to be as far away from the ranch as possible. And now they want to come home. And that's the key. That's what we hope to drive in the next segment of what we do with direct to consumer is get more kids on the land, whether they're on the land presently or they're one or two generations removed, because that's the future of feeding people in the United States, in my opinion.
That's awesome and hopeful. Cole, how about you?
Uh, I guess first of all, I would say I'm not a huge fan of sending meat in the mail, and I don't. It's not where I hope to be long term. For me, it's we'll sell it where we can sell it right now. Um, but the less meat in the mail, the better. I will say that one of the reasons we started Old Soul Co-op was because like all of our producers had come from a background of trying their own individual family brands. And so my family, for example, had Mannix beef for 20 years. And we got to a point where we were selling a few hundred animals a year locally, but that was 30% of what we raised. And it was just taking so much time away from the ranch. away from grass, away from livestock, away from changing water, and all those things. And meanwhile, our processor didn't have enough capacity for us to grow anyway. And we felt like, hey, we need to we need to work with the others to build a meat company that can take some of this pressure off of our individual ranches. And so I think one of the ways and in the meantime, as Old Salt Co-op has gotten it, going, there's far more producer interest in participating than we have found demand. Like our problem is not getting more people who want to jump on board or and quality ranches that want to do that, but it's more just growing the market fast enough. We have had plenty of producers who run their own brands right now and don't want to. And they basically want to be part of Old Salt because in this case they retain their upside. Our members have the upside. Once investors are paid off, they are the primary beneficiary group. They govern the company and they participate in patronage. So they sell their animal to the company and then they're the primary beneficiary group. And so one of the ways that we may grow on the direct to consumer side is by inheriting small groups of D2C customers who come, with the brand that wants to join Old Salt. I guess the other thing I would say is that we, as a family, Mannix beef had never been profitable at the farmers markets, but we did grow our customer base that way. So overall, it was a good thing. We have not, as Old Salt, participated in farmers markets, and I would like to find a way to do that again. It's challenging to have enough boots on the ground in each different market as spread out as the Western Montana urban markets are, and to provide them with the infrastructure and get them the inventory they need. So, perhaps that would be possible with summer interns or something like that. But even then, there's some infrastructure problems to solve. I guess maybe I'll just say that because we run wholesale trucks and a route that is direct to consumer, what I would really like to do on our end is to consolidate that so that instead of meeting people in 15-minute windows in parking lots, we are delivering to drop locations that actually host a freezer for us so people can order online and pick up their order at those drop locations that already have hours of operation, like a gym, someplace that has business hours and a staff who don't mind more people coming in their door. And and that way our wholesale trucks can just deliver both the direct to consumer orders and, the wholesale account orders. So that's a little bit how I'm thinking about the future of our D2C side.
That's great. Thank you, Cole. Yeah, and interesting that a lot of ranches, even when I was farming, start off with farmers markets and then grow out of that. But it's a great way to start building customer awareness and that email list too that becomes so critical when you want to develop a newsletter. And it's interesting that you want to figure out kind of how to go back to that. Um, there's enough time now for about 15 minutes of questions, and folks can either pop their questions into the chat, or if you're not too shy, you can unmute yourself, even turn on your video camera and ask the question directly. So feel free to start those questions. Anyone?
Here, I could ask a question. I'm like in the middle of walking into my house. I just got back from a meeting, but I don't even know if my camera is working. But is there anything that you guys so I work with Manny actually a lot, and then I know Gabrielle, but I'm the New Mexico Beef Council, and so our job is to advocate for beef producers, right? And help. Is there anything in particular, maybe in other states or anything that a beef council is doing, or how can we help you guys be successful as direct to consumer businesses?
Anyone want to take that from the panel? Maybe Manny, since you're in New Mexico.
I haven't thought about that one, Carolyn. Should give me a heads up. You know, I guess beef councils again. I think it's just being up front and center. I think Carol Ann, since you've been in this position, you've done a lot just to build visibility with just having a directory for those who are in the direct to consumer business. I think to me very much a step in the right direction. I think even for me and the utilization of my beef checkoff dollars, I think it's a great way for a beef council to basically use those monies judiciously for the benefit of local producers.
I have a thought too, and that's also what alluding back to what I was saying about people wanting to have confidence when they're cooking. It's providing those recipes, which you guys are doing a great job, but getting that information out across the whole animal. We take one animal and we disassemble it into 29 SKUs or 31 SKUs or something. And it's giving people confidence to work with every single one of those cuts, because we have to pass the value of that live animal onto all those pounds of beef. And so I think that's the biggest thing, is being creative. Recipe content gets a lot of eyes on it. And I think that really helping people feel confident in cooking.
Does that answer your question a little bit, Carol Ann?
Yeah, absolutely. I just have enjoyed this webinar, and I didn't want you guys to get left hanging without any questions, because I mean, I'll bug these guys any day.
Thank you. Yeah, I have seen like Idaho's Cattle Association has a great website of all their direct to consumer beef producers. I have seen several states that have done that, and I think that could be a really big help. Curtis, did you have a question you wanted to ask?
Yeah, sorry, I just came off mute there. Hopefully, I'm okay to hear. So it's a general question for everybody, and I think most businesses, actually not most, all businesses go through this challenge, right? Sounds like we've all kind of gone through the throw the spaghetti at the wall, see what sticks, start to run with that as far as your business model, and then sounds like a lot of you are probably in the same spot I am, is scaling the business to meet the overhead and consumer needs, right? So. I would just be curious to see what did you guys do to help make the decision to go from, whatever scale size business you are now to, like, obviously Gabrielle, you guys are a very large scale size beef business, but going from A to B, what did that look like for you guys, and what made did you grow infrastructure first and then meet demand, or just kind of grow as far as you could till you couldn't supply your customers and then reinvest, right? So there's kind of two models there. People usually go is we'll build the ship, and then we'll start, and get on top of it, or just kind of grow as much as we can with investments. So yeah.
That's a good question, and that transition period can be really tough. Gabrielle, do you want to comment on that a little bit?
So the president of our corporation for about 25 years was my father-in-law, Martin Homer, and he is a risk taker. He is a dreamer. He is a go out and get the business and never say no kind of a guy. And so it really did happen where there would be a request and then we would fill it from the back. Yes, it would be lovely if you could plan ahead and strategize. But in our industry, it takes, 6 months or 8 months to feed out an animal. And so it's really hard for us to look at today and know what our demand's going to be in December. So it really is a combination of both those things. It is going out and developing the business on the front side, but it's also trying to put the cattle behind you and the quality producers behind you and holding that side of it together. And it's complicated. It's complex. There's no easy recipe, and we've done it all ways in 30 years. So Curtis, I'm totally up for talking personally. If you want to ask more questions or pick my brain, I'll tell you what I know.
There's a reason why I asked for everybody's contact, because this is definitely a side conversation that could be a half hour each for each of you to present and talk to. So thanks for the opportunity to get your guys' contact information. That's those kind of questions. But go ahead, Cole. I saw you just came up from mute as well. So
I was just going to say briefly that for us, when we asked the question of what's the appropriate scale and what should we aim for, it was a lot about we don't have enough processing infrastructure around here for very many brands to grow. And it's hard for anybody to grow right now, but um, given the price of cattle. But we were really asking ourselves, okay, if part of the middle infrastructure that's needed is more processing in our area, what is the scale of processor that can be viable? And we didn't think 10 head week was quite enough. We had looked a lot at Friesla, and we thought that the volume compared to price might be challenging there. And what we ended up doing finally is we bought a plant that had the capacity for about 100 a week without changing it significantly on the just in the physical infrastructure side. And we had told ourselves was that about a 50 to 60 head a week scale was where we wanted to be. And so I guess the way we're thinking about the appropriate scale is just like with the unit economics that work at a plant that size, how do we have enough throughput consistently enough, do a good job, and pay our debt back and pay investors back. And so we said our goal is to be a $30 million business, 25 to $30 million business. Our goal is this much throughput because we think it's a scale that works for this little regional model we're after. We're, by the way, not anywhere close to that right now, but it's how we told ourselves, it's how we talked to ourselves about what we thought the goal was.
I like that, Cole. Yeah, and you're building into it. And it really helps to work with other producers, especially when you're short on animals. Anyone else want to come off mute and ask a question or pop something in the chat?
I've got a question that hopefully is a little quicker than the one I put in the chat, but I have a really basic question about maybe at start versus how it's evolved, how you set your standards and your specs for sourcing meat from multiple producers, especially since a couple of you said, we don't tell the producer what breed to raise, et cetera, et cetera. I raise lamb and I raise a very different carcass size, a larger one than a lot of other folks around me. And so when you look at aggregating product, I'm curious how you set those standards for carcasses and cuts, and maybe how that's changed over time as you've started receiving different product or working with more producers.
When we changed to being a USDA graded program, that kind of really, shifted the model. But it all came down to quality cattle, good eating experience, slow finishing, doing our job right, keeping the cattle healthy. And it evolved that way. And the producers that took time to evaluate the results and the performance of their cattle. Sometimes, they come to us in a different way. Sometimes we purchase the cattle. Sometimes the producer retains ownership. We source cattle from around 150 to 200 small ranches throughout the Northwest. So there is a lot of diversity there, but they are good at what they do, and they pay attention, and they look at the results, and they have stayed true to trying to maintain their reputation with us and with the consumers. And that's just been an investment from those ranchers, 100%.
And do you pass information back on to them, like in terms of carcass quality and yield, all that?
We do, more so now than ever. In early years, I don't think people were quite as interested, but now we have a lot of producers, and so there's a person here in our office that specifically, that's what she does, is works with the producers to make sure they know the results of their cattle and how they performed, and we get back as much data as we possibly can for them. And you can tell by the we don't control that live cattle price. So are they profitable? Are they not profitable? There's a lot of things that play into that. And so when they come back year after year, we know it's working for them.
Nice. Cole, do you want to share how you guys do it?
I'll just share really briefly that we don't pay on a grid yet. We ask for a target carcass weight on the grass side and a different target carcass weight on the grain side, but still the range is fairly large. We we don't finish any kind of old calves. Like nothing that we do is 17 or 18 months old. It's all, you know, a minimum of 22 to 24 months, on the grain side, and on the grass side, they're anywhere from 26 months old to 36 months old for some of the grass programs that we're bringing a long time. And then we certainly utilize 4 and 5 year old cows and that kind of thing. In terms of standards, right now, what we have is a very small membership, 4 cattle producers and 1 hog producer. Those ranches got together because they knew each other really well and had basically built very similar land stewardship models. And so what we agreed upon was that each ranch would commit to third-party ecological monitoring. That's certain soil characteristics, vegetative characteristics, and participating in certain wildlife monitoring programs. But they all use different programs and they all use different third-party certifiers. So Land EKG, Bullseye Method, Snaplands, um, and then the ranches themselves, not the hog producer, but the cattle ranches went under Audubon conservation ranching ranch management plans. This year, Audubon can't be used on our non-grass finished labels, but it was just a way for our producers to kind of begin to measure some of the same things when it comes to bird habitat. So we really don't use those certifications as marketing. We use them just more as a way to learn more as a producer group. And what yeah maybe I'll stop there. We target certain carcass sizes and certain finish levels on the grass and grain side, and then on the ranch level we commit to third party ecological measurement to try to inform ourselves as we go.
I like that, Cole. All right, we got probably enough time for one more question. Is there anyone in the audience who wants to unmute yourself or pop a question in the chat? Candace, do you want to ask a question? Go ahead.
Hi, good morning. Just had a question about lamb sales. So we process mutton on the Navajo Nation, and Navajos are strictly mutton eaters. But I always have a lot of lamb left. Nobody wants to buy lamb from me. And that's probably the biggest issue I'm having now is that I try to sell my people, Navajo people, lamb cuts. And they're like, what am I supposed to do with that? They're so tiny. So I guess in terms of your experience, where are your customers at? Are they in restaurants? Are they wholesale? Are they, because I want to get rid of it in bulk. So are they going to like schools, senior citizens? Where would you suggest to get this meat going as quick as possible?
That's a great question. Manny, do you want to help her with that one?
You bet. I think, lamb and mutton, they're contrary to other parts of the United States, they are really in high demand, I would say, in the Southwest because of our indigenous population and then just part of our culture, our diverse cultures here. I would probably, let's have a side conversation. I would say I sent you a message right away when you started bringing this up because I think there is some opportunity to, again, I would probably start first and foremost with the New Mexico Grown Program. I'm not sure if you're a New Mexico Grown approved supplier yet. But there's definitely some avenues there, I would say, to get bulk meat, bulk lamb sales out the door, right? But I think it's definitely a longer conversation. But I would start with New Mexico grown. Are you in the New Mexico side or the Arizona side?
I'm on the very far western Arizona side.
There you go.
And
So let's talk. I'd love to have a conversation with you offline and kind of see how we might be able to work with this because the demand I think continues to grow for lamb and mutton. But a lot of the producers are aging out, right? Even the ones that are selling direct to consumer now, they're just at 27, 30 years into the business and they have no generation coming after them. So let's have a conversation. My stuff's in the chat.
Thank you, Manny. Yeah, and I would probably recommend institutional sales if you really want to move larger volumes. And perhaps one of the universities in Arizona would be interested in adding Arizona grown lamb to their menu. This has been a fantastic conversation. I so appreciate all the panelists' time. You guys are busy, busy folks and a wealth of information. This is the first part of a two-part webinar series. Our next webinar is going to be in the middle of March, and that one is going to feature a bunch of marketing professionals talking really about the nuts and bolts of developing a brand, a logo, a compelling website, e-newsletter, social media, all the various tools that we use to market our businesses. And that'll be a great webinar. So please do sign up for that one as well. And with that, I'm going to close today and just wish everyone a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.